All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our RBT practice question series where we're going through another set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. You're working with the client in a public setting. Another staff member who is new to the team makes a joke about the client's challenging behavior in front of other people. Your most appropriate initial response, in line with maintaining client dignity and professional conduct, is to blank. Now, this is a question targeting a couple different things. One, as a technician, you're going to often work on teams with other technicians. And you have to remember, ultimately, your supervisor is in charge of the team. So even if you are disagreeing with how another staff member, another technician might be implementing something, might be discussing something, ultimately the person responsible for that is your supervisor. So in this case, if we have a client who's in public and you see a staff member who's new, which is important, make a joke about the client's challenging behavior, how should you respond as the technician on the case? A, immediately tell the staff member to stop and explain why their comment was inappropriate. Now, embarrassing or humiliating or trying to show up your staff member who is new in front of the client, in front of other people, maybe in front of the stakeholder, is not going to be the correct course of action. They made a joke and they made it in front of other people. We don't know what the joke was. We don't know how anybody responded. We're not sure of more information. So yes, A might be what you feel is necessary in certain context, but in this case, we don't want to overstep your role as the technician, and we don't have any more information other than a joke was made. So is there a better answer? B, ignore the comment as the staff member is new. It might not know better yet. We don't want to just ignore that it happened. Since they are new, we do want to address it. And going back to what we were talking about earlier, we want to address it with the supervisor. So C, report the specific incident and the staff member's behavior to your supervisor. That's your most appropriate initial response. Because again, ultimately the supervisor is responsible for how this team member is handling public settings and handling challenging behavior. D, document the incident thoroughly in your session notes, but take no immediate action. As with everything, and even in our task list, which says always be prompt in communication with the supervisor, your first report is the supervisor. Always. Don't take it upon yourself to try to fix this situation. Instead, address it with the supervisor, report it, and then see what they say. A child frequently tries to bite their shirt collar. Whenever their hand moves towards their mouth with their shirt, a caregiver quickly and gently places their hand over the child's hand, preventing the shirt from reaching their mouth. The caregiver does not say anything, nor do they remove the child from the activity. This intervention is an example of blank. So we have an intervention question, and what is the intervention? What is the caregiver trying to accomplish? We know the child is biting their shirt, and so whenever their hand moves towards their mouth with their shirt, what does the caregiver do? They prevent the shirt from reaching their mouth. Now, there's a very specific intervention when we prevent a behavior from happening. If we look at A, a lot of people confuse extinction and what this is, which is response blocking. Extinction can take many different forms. Remember, extinction is just withholding reinforcement from a previously reinforced behavior. It does not necessarily mean preventing the behavior from happening. In most cases, for extinction to be effective, we actually want the behavior to occur. In this case, the caregiver prevented the behavior altogether. So did they use physical guidance? Well, physical guidance is more of a prompt. The caregiver is not physically guiding the child to do anything. They're preventing them from doing something. C, negative punishment. So response blocking is often viewed as a potential punishment procedure. But we aren't removing anything, right? Because what the caregiver is doing is adding the their hand, right, or their hand over the child's hand to the situation, preventing the shirt. So from anything, if anything, it's going to be a positive consequence intervention. We're adding something as a result. This intervention is an example of response blocking. Don't overthink response blocking. Response blocking is blocking a response from occurring. What you want to avoid is confusing response blocking with extinction, because extinction, again, takes many forms and is based on withholding reinforcement, not necessarily preventing behavior from happening. During a play session, a child starts to scream loudly. Your behavior intervention plan states the screaming is on extinction, no attention provided. You continue to engage with another peer, avoiding eye contact or verbal responses to the screaming. The screaming continues for 1 minute, then stops. After 5 minutes of quiet play, the child suddenly begins screaming again, even though nothing in the environment changed. This reemergence is most similar to what? Now, this is a tricky question. It is an extinction question, but it's an extinction procedure that happened fast, right? There is no time limit on how fast or slow extinction is going to work. Sometimes extinction can be immediately effective. Sometimes it takes quite a while. We do know screaming is the behavior we're targeting for extinction by giving no attention. So if we graph our behavior, and let's say screaming is here, and you refuse to give attention by avoiding eye contact and verbal responses to screaming, and that screaming continues for a minute, goes through the extinction burst, and then stops, it appears that extinction was effective. Now, after the behavior was extinguished and they were quiet, what happens? Well, the behavior comes back. So what do we call it after extinction is effective, behavior decreases, and then there's a sudden emergence of behavior? Well, we call that spontaneous recovery. The life cycle of extinction is extinction, we withhold reinforcement. We then have an extinction burst where the behavior peaks, behavior then goes down, and if that behavior comes back, we call that spontaneous recovery. So the sudden reemergence, or the sudden screaming again, is going to be spontaneous recovery. We're reading all of our answer choices. C, prompt dependency. It's not a prompting question. It's not about prompting, so C is out. D, stimulus generalization. It's not a generalization question. It's an extinction question. So C and D should not even be something you're considering. This is where fluency is so important. If you're fluent on your RBT exam, very, very frequently will you be able to quickly eliminate answer choices just through fluency knowledge. The reemergence we're looking at with extinction is A, spontaneous recovery. You are assisting a client in learning to put on their socks. The client can independently pull the sock over their toes, but struggles with pulling it up the rest of their foot. Your supervisor has instructed you to physically prompt the client to pull the sock up their foot, then immediately fade your prompt as they initiate the pulling motion themselves. The continuous adjustment of physical prompt is a characteristic of what? Now, if you're very fluent, you could probably answer this question just by reading this continuous adjustment of physical prompts, because it's essentially a definition. But how we attack questions is we gather information as we read. We know you're helping the client learn to put their socks on. We know the client can pull the sock over their toes, but then they struggle with getting it up their foot. Your strategy, or your prompting strategy, is physical, but fading the physical prompt as they initiate the pulling motion themselves. What type of physical prompt involves implementing physical prompting as needed, but then quickly fading it away, quickly adjusting it? A, forward chaining. You may be teaching this using forward chaining, but we're talking about the prompt here. So don't get that confused. We want to read carefully. We're talking about the prompt, not the teaching method. B, graduated guidance. Graduated guidance is the continuous adjustment of physical prompts. With graduated guidance, you might wait and then you physically prompt. And as the client no longer needs the prompt, you fade the prompt out. Then you might wait again, reintroduce, fade it out. So you're introducing physical prompts as needed and then quickly fading again. It's different from, let's say, a full physical prompt where you are physically prompting throughout the entire behavior, throughout the entire thing, no matter what. With a graduated guidance, you're gradually guiding the client as needed and then fading quickly. C, shaping. With shaping, we would be talking about approximations of behavior, reinforcing approximations, which we did not discuss. D, least to most prompting. Well, we only have one type of prompting, and it is physical, and it does not appear we're going least to most here. We're just starting with the physical prompt. So when we're continuously adjusting physical prompts as necessary, we're using graduated guidance. A classroom observer records whether a student remains seated for the full 30-second interval during each segment of a 10-minute math lesson. The behavior is marked yes only if the student stays seated for the entire interval. What type of data collection is being used? So data collection question, we know that we are looking at 30-second intervals of a 10-minute math lesson. Immediately, we're thinking time sampling or interval recording. So let's draw out our little interval chart. If we have a 30-second interval and we need the behavior, let's say, to happen part of the time, it's partial interval, but in this case, we need it for the entire interval. So we need it the whole interval, the whole 30 seconds. That's going to be whole interval recording. If we needed it at the end of the interval, that'd be momentary time sampling. When you break down interval recording and time sampling like this, it becomes very easy. Do you need it the whole time? You need it part of the time? Or do you need it at the moment the time is over? If you can answer that question, you can quickly answer this question. Since we need the entire interval, this is going to be whole interval recording. Thanks for watching. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials. Please subscribe. It really helps, and it gives you all of our updates. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout-out. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.